And one of the things that kept coming up was this idea of excellence. But being lazy, I struggled with excellence in my finances, in my health, in my relationships, in my faith. And so over the years of building processes and procedures into my own personal life, because I was seeking that excellence, I got pretty good at it. But one of the things I didn't see myself doing was the victim role that I played. It was very subtle in my life, but the world has really encouraged us to act like victims.
Mhm.
And we actually spend an awful lot of our time trying to optimize the crappy life we ended up with instead of stepping back and really being honest with ourselves and saying, what do I want my life to look like? And then have the audacity to go chase that.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stephenson, the Odd Man.
Oh, greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, where we delve into the journey of living your best audacious life ever. It's a pleasure to have you listening in and taking the time to explore what it means to live life to its fullest. Just like a ship navigating turbulent waters, accountability acts as the compass guiding us towards our destination of success in our audacious endeavors. Today we have the honor of hosting Robert Hunt. He's a transformational speaker and author of the book Nobody Cares, which explores the power of accountability in transforming our lives. And that's exactly what this episode will be all about, transforming our lives through accountability. And that's why, his insights align perfectly with the theme of this episode, as he's going to share his personal journey of moving from victimhood to empowerment through taking ownership of his actions as well as his decisions. It's a great conversation I'm certain you'll enjoy. So without any further ado, here's my chat with Robert Hunt. Hey, Robert, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living podcast. I appreciate you taking the time to join me here on the podcast, and
My pleasure.
really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for doing this.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, no, we do spend much time just off camera. You mentioned that, we spend much time talking and encouraging individuals to live their best audacious lives ever. And that life can be a beautiful one, because it's very much, at the end of the day, it's that life that you were intendedly, authentically supposed to live.
Yeah.
And there's nothing more wonderful than knowing that your intended purpose, you're living exactly to that. And I think that's again a beautiful thing. The work that you do is really helping people remove obstacles and blocks. And I sometimes call them boulders on our pathway, help them get past those things so they can live this best audacious life that we're talking about. So it makes total sense to have you here. Makes total sense to
Thank you.
engage in the conversation about accountability. And so
Yeah.
maybe as a starting point, Robert, I can get you to share with the listeners a little bit about your journey and what's gotten you to the point that you're at today.
Yeah, my journey has really been about moving from being lazy, which I was as a young man, to this idea of what excellence looked like. When I gave my heart to Jesus, I started to realize that what would it be different to actually live a life walking with God.
Mhm.
Instead of just visiting Him on Sundays, I really wanted to know what it was like to spend every day engaged in my faith. And one of the things that kept coming up was this idea of excellence. But being lazy, I struggled with excellence in my finances, in my health, in my relationships, in my faith. And so over the years of building processes and procedures into my own personal life, because I was seeking that excellence, I got pretty good at it. But one of the things I didn't see myself doing was the victim role that I played. It was very subtle in my life, but the world has really encouraged us to act like victims.
Mhm.
And we actually spend an awful lot of our time trying to optimize the crappy life we ended up with instead of stepping back and really being honest with ourselves and saying, what do I want my life to look like? And then have the audacity to go chase that. And
Love
I
it.
think that's interesting that you call your show Audacious Living, because it is audacious to consider that you have the opportunity to live the life you really want. God called us to a life that He would want to bless us. He put us in a place where we could have a great impact on the world, and we should be daring and bold. But instead, we often play the role of a victim. And
Mm.
that's why I wrote the book, Nobody Cares, because I'm trying to get people to realize that nobody cares if you're miserable, fat, broke, unhappy with your marriage, whatever your story is, nobody cares unless you care enough to do something about it first.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's funny. When I think about it, and I saw the title, I thought like, oh, wow, that's certainly a powerful title. Um, and I started to think about the reasons why nobody cares, and the thing that I came back to a couple times is because they're so consumed with themselves, our own
Yeah,
egos, and what
yeah,
matters to us more than Robert, you're a great guy, but I got my own stuff to deal with. So
yeah,
later, kind of
totally,
deal, right?
totally.
And it's so true because we are really into ourselves.
Well, and we need to be because we're not very good at it doing that. It takes a lot of effort just not to suck. And Kathy and I got to this, my beautiful wife Kathy and I, we got to this in 2019 where we were $90,000 in debt.
Yeah,
And that doesn't include the house or the cars. And we were miserable. And
yeah.
I kept going to God, going, "Hey, when are you going to bless us? When are you going to make my business take off and get us out of debt?" And he was like, "Dude, I gave you all that money. What'd you do with it? Why are you looking at me to cover your bad decisions again?"
Mhm.
And all year long, we kept saying, "Okay, if we're not going to get out of debt this year, we're going to sell the house and start over." And we had a beautiful home and movie theater and great place to live, and it was nice, but we couldn't afford it. And that was the pride of us kicking in to say, well, I need this house. I deserve this house. And maybe next year it'll get better, maybe next year. So finally in 2019, we through a long series of events, and we write about it in the book, we came to this idea that we got to stop blaming God and we got to start owning it. And so we sold our house. And by
Mm.
March of 2020, we sold it, took the equity out of it, and moved into this house where we rent today. And we took all that money, we paid off everything we owed, and we started over. And it was beautiful. And the peace that I had was unbelievable. I forgot what it felt like to have peace. I thought I had peace, but I didn't. I had anxiety and worry and fear. And then moments of peace because I'd see something hopeful, but I was overall living anxiety. It wasn't until I removed it all and
Yeah.
I compared what I was before that I realized I had lost it so many years ago.
Mm. I mean, I smile as you talk about that piece because the all the positive ripple effects that come out of that, like coming to that place of peace, and it's really interesting to think about it. It takes so much work to get there, right? And you finally get to that place of peace, and you're like, oh, this is wonderful, and it
Yeah.
makes all the work worth it.
And I don't want to lose it. I don't want to go back. And
Yeah,
when I realized what the peace felt like, I thought, well, why don't I take a look at everything else in my life? And why don't I look at my marriage?
yeah,
And why don't I look at my health? And why not look at the way that I spend my time and my faith and my friendships? All those things were up for grab because I had conquered the one thing that was the worst thing in my life, and I had kicked its butt. And I thought if I could do that, then what else can I make better? So my wife and I went to counseling and got some real help to talk through issues. And I invited some other men in my life that I respect to walk in the journey with me. We talk about accountability only happens when you have vulnerability. And when you
gotcha.
invite someone in and you tell them, look, I'm not good at this. I don't like this part of my life. And you don't ask them to fix it for you. They're not going to babysit me. But I would say, hey, if I come back and I say I'm doing something that doesn't align with where I said I want to go, you have the
Mhm.
right to remind me of what I already told you. And
Gotcha.
nobody can hold anyone accountable. That's a sentence we say a lot of times. I'm going to hold you accountable. Or hey, would you hold me accountable? You can't because very easily you could lie. Hey,
Sure.
I'm gonna not go to uh, the bar anymore. I'm gonna spend more time with the kids. I'm not gonna yell at my wife. And then I call you, go, hey, how's it going? How you doing with that? And you're like, oh yeah, I'm doing great. But you could lie. I don't know. So there's no accountability in that. Accountability is in you. That's why you say to yourself, nobody cares. Nobody cares if I'm miserable. Nobody cares if I'm not happy with anything unless I care enough to do something. And that's when I start accountability.
Thinking of your story, and I really appreciate you sharing, Robert, first and foremost. So thank you for doing so. But as I think through your story, there's so many different lessons and so many different themes that could come out of your experiences of
Yeah.
selling your house and starting all over again and living in peace. What made you land on accountability specifically?
It was the thing. When I really looked at the idea of blame and the excuses I was making, and I really realized that I had no option but to own it. We call out in the book that there are four things that people do when they realize they're accountable for something. They blame, they blame the government, they blame God, they blame their spouses, they blame their employees, whatever it is. If that doesn't work, they make excuses.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know, or well, the COVID hit. I mean, or the government, the taxes are so high, and we make all these excuses as to why we can't do something. And if that doesn't work, then we just go, well, I can't do anything about it. I just can't. And really, what we're saying when we say I can't is we're saying I won't. I won't do that. That's too hard for me. I don't want to deal with that, so I won't change. And
Right.
sadly, when you say I won't, then nothing gets any better. And so the last step of all that is you say, well, I'll just wait and see if it gets better next year. And the next year makes the next year, and the next year makes the next year. And we did that for so many years that we finally realized, you know what, we're not getting any better. And the only solution was to own it. It really became obvious. Nobody's going to bail us out. Who's going to give
Yep.
me $90,000? I mean, I thought of all these schemes. I was going through all these things in my mind. I'll just ask one of my clients to invest in my business for $90,000. What's he going to invest in? You have no value in that business. He's not going to give you, you'd be an idiot to give you money. And so you start coming up with all these things and you realize, look, there is no other option. You just need to own it. However, when we decided to own it, we realized we had the power to change it.
Sure.
When we stood back and looked at everything as a victim, and we blame the economy and we blame God and we blame our clients and we blame and we make excuses for stuff, we had no power. We had no hope. But when we finally owned it, okay, this is ours. What are we going to do? We could do a lot of things, and some of them sucked. The things
Yeah.
we had to go through were really a bummer thing to do. But at least we owned it, and at least we were going to where we wanted to be and not sitting there feeling, woe is me, I'm screwed, my life is hopeless. That's so powerless. I hated that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I do. The idea of taking ownership and not waiting for fate or the universe or some random thing to happen to save you.
Right.
There, I want to say that never happens, but I'm sure there's occasionally, once in a while, these things take place that, you know, make a difference in people's lives. But if that's your plan A, uh, there's a problem,
Yeah.
right? Like,
And there are times where God was so kind to me. If you look over my shoulder here, there's a picture of money. And one time I was in a really bad financial spot with my business as it had been taking off, only a few years into it. And one of my clients gave me $10,000 in cash.
okay.
We were sitting around having a cigar and talking about life. And he said, man, you've been such a blessing to me. Would it be okay if I gave you some money? And I was like, you don't have to give me money. You pay me money every month to work with your company. He's like, I just want to give you this money. Are you okay? I'm like, no, you don't need it. Hey, can I give you some money? I'm like, okay, give me money. And he reaches into his pocket and he takes out $10,000 in $100 bills and puts it on the table. And I just started crying. I said, you have no idea how broke I am right now. And God, in his graciousness, gave me money through that client.
Well,
But I didn't change. All it did was give me a few more months of free living to kick it down the line. Nothing in my behavior changed. So maybe
yeah,
for the moment, I felt like, yes, someone saved me, someone covered me, but I was still broken with the bad perspective on money and with irresponsibility and how I communicate. All these things, nothing changed. So having someone fix your
man,
problem, man, it's not going
man,
to make you any better. You're still
no.
going to be broken and you're going to screw it up all over again.
Oh man, I'm so happy that you shared that story, Robert, because you're so right. The idea of something swooping in. So you're one of those people I talked about, right? You're one of those random people that had this thing gifted to you. But if you still aren't taking responsibility in terms of what you do and your actions and how you behave and respond, you're just wasting the money, and
It's all going to come back.
it's gonna
Yeah.
not going anywhere anytime soon. Wow. It just seems, yeah, it just like it's funny because it's one of these things where if you talk about accountability, I think most people go, yeah, yeah, I know what it is. Yeah, right. But
Like
that's
it's
kind of
a
where it
thing out
stops,
there.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's where it stops. And so it's like the idea of why people are more accountable in their life. Really, well, I mean, maybe you've got to answer that. But why do you
Well,
think that is?
so first of all, I think people think they're accountable when they're being responsible. And responsible is different than accountable. Responsible is you showed up for work. That's what you did. You got your paycheck and you showed up. Accountable is you showed up after a good night's sleep. And
Hmm.
you took care of the things in your life that allowed you to go to work and think about work for 8 hours. And you had a hard conversation with a coworker so that you didn't have to do workarounds. You could actually work with them. And you paid attention and you cared when you saw something that was wrong. You stepped up and you did it because it's the right thing to do. That is accountable to the outcome. Responsible is doing something, accountable is owning the outcome. And so sometimes we think we're really accountable. I'm accountable for my life, but you're
Mhm.
heavily in debt. You got a marriage that's fallen apart. You don't spend time with your kids. You have all these relationships around you that you damaged that they don't want to be with you anymore. And you're not taking care of your body. What's the part that you've been accountable on? But we
There's nothing.
mistakenly say those things, and everyone goes, yeah, you're doing a good job. You got 6 kids. You have a job. You're rocking it. That is responsible. That's not accountable.
Right, right. Well, I certainly appreciate you making that distinction because I can see people giving that response. No, I do my job. But then there's a part of me, I gotta tell you, there's a part of me goes, but you are supposed to take care of your kids. You are supposed to manage your life. You are supposed to, like, that's, you want credit for the things that you're supposed to be doing? I
But
mean,
they do, don't we? Don't we? Don't we want a big attaboy that we haven't beat our kids or we haven't left our family? Like that's some big act of Congress. It is weird that we've set the bar so low
yeah.
that just by showing up, you should get a participation trophy. Not to pick on Little League. I'm not making any comments about Little League. I'm just saying.
No, no. I mean, there's nothing wrong with getting the 13th place ribbon, right? Like, I mean, it's all good.
Oh, they when I played baseball as a kid, I was so bad. I just wanted to hang out with my friends. They put me out in right field where the ball never goes, and it was good
Sure.
because I wasn't paying attention. I was looking at the flowers in the grass and stuff, and
Yeah, yeah.
never had a chance. And at the end of the season, you got orange slices. That
There
was
you
your
go.
big victory. There was no participation trophy. You guys suck. Here's an orange.
Suck on this.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it, man. We're getting off track here. Yeah, as an executive coach, because you work with leaders and organizations, and help them to be more accountable. What do you see in the executive space when it comes to sort of leadership and accountability? Is it recognized, or is some work that needs to be done for people to understand? Because I'm getting the sense that we just talked about taking responsibility. I can see leaders taking that responsibility as you described, right? The thing that as you lay it out. But the accountability piece, that's something different.
Yeah, it is totally different. And I would say nobody is above the struggle of accountability. Let's say
Mhm.
you're a business owner. On one hand, it's your business, so you're accountable for the business. However, you blame, you blame your employees, you blame
Okay.
your customers, you blame the government, you blame the products that you bring in to sell. And we make excuses for why our sales numbers aren't the way they are. And we make excuses for why we allow customers to be so mean to our employees or employees to be mean to each other. We say, well, I can't let go of that employee. They're the most important person here. If they go, we'll lose all this business. I can't let go of that person. They've been here 20 years. You say these things like can't, what you really mean is I won't. Or you
Right.
just like most people wait and hope that maybe next year will get better. So we'll keep a bunch of employees on. I'll run out as much money as I have. And then all of a sudden I'll have to declare bankruptcy and lay everybody off. And so the truth of it is we're not accountable to good business practices in many ways. And we don't even want to be held accountable. So we just avoid other people. One of the reasons why people join my CEO peer groups is because they want the kind of accountability that you get when you're in a group with me. Because
Right.
you put your P&L on the wall in front of everybody and you go, here's the profit we made for the last 3 years. And here's what we're doing now. And here's what and you are sharing the things you plan to do so people can go, you're going to do what? I thought you said you're going to spend more time with your kids. Why are you
Mm,
opening up another division? And they get to call you on stuff, but you have to be radically transparent and radically open-minded with them. That's what we say with accountability. It requires vulnerability. If you're not
gotcha.
willing to be real, you'll never get any better. So business owners aren't above it. I think overall they own it more often because it ends up in their lap, whether they like it or not.
Right. 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 Right.
But still, they struggle with the same things that everybody else does.
For sure. So, whether I'm a business owner, leader, or just a regular Joe Blow off the street, if I need to understand, hey, I need to be more accountable. Are there steps or suggested process, or what's the starting point?
Yeah, the starting point is for you to take an honest assessment of where your satisfaction is.
Okay.
Satisfaction creates energy. We all need more energy to be able to thrive in life. And so what we've done is we put these two satisfaction wheels in the book, and you can go to our website, nobodycaresbook.com,
Hmm.
and you can go take the assessment for free. You don't have to buy the book, although I would like you to buy the book.
Of course.
You can go there, take the assessment, and in that you declare honestly, don't lie to yourself. No one's going to see this except you. put on there, how satisfied are you in your personal and professional life? That's the starting point. Because until Kathy and I sat down that night in January of 2019 and said, how satisfied are we with our lives? We didn't honestly ever look at it. We just kind of kept going along. But when we
Yeah.
stepped back and said, well, remember when we got married? Remember what we wanted our marriage to look like? You remember when we had a kid, what we thought it would be like as a family? We're not having that life. And we're not satisfied with that. And we figured out the cause was us. So the first step is for you to declare honestly in those assessments where your satisfaction is. And then to look at your life and go, okay, what am I going to do about it? And if you blame, make excuse, say you can't, or wait and hope, you're stuck as a victim. But if you can say to yourself in whatever area you want to pick, okay, I'm scoring that at 2 out of 10. I'm not happy with it. Nobody cares unless I care to do something about it. What am I going to do? And it's at that point, then you need to take an assessment and look around and go, what is truth? What's the reality here? It's like standing in front of a mirror, a 360 mirror, naked, where you can't hide under a baggy shirt or a black shirt that makes my love handles go away magically. And so you take this honest look at yourself, and then you realize, okay, it's going to suck to do something about this.
Yeah.
If I have to sell my house and start over, that's going to suck. However, living life as a victim sucks. I don't want that one. And when the pain of where you are is worse than the pain of what you have to go and do,
Mm,
you will change. And that's what it
mm.
was for us. So we embrace the suck. The chapter is actually called Embrace the Suck because that's what you have to do. You have to say, this may suck, but I'm going where I want to go. It's kind of like working out and you're doing weights and you're lifting and it hurts, but you
Sure.
know where you're going. Or you're on a really long airplane ride, but you're going to Maui and you're like, man, my legs are cramping. I hate sitting here, but I'm going to be on the beach in 6 hours. You have a hope, right? And so when you have that embrace the suck, then you will find a solution. And sometimes the solutions, well, most of the times I would argue, they magically appear. You realize, wait, when you've got the vision of, I'm going to do something one way or another, I'm going to change this, you start to see, I could do that. I could do that. Before you were so hopeless and so helpless that even the most obvious thing right in front of you didn't make sense. But when you've resolved, I'm going to own this and I'm going to change this, then you start to see all these opportunities. And when you make that plan and you work and change it, you can bring people into your life to support you and encourage you in the process, which is what we did. And we found the kind of encouragement to stick with it until we got it done.
So, so important, and I want to thank you for highlighting the importance of satisfaction. I don't know if I would have naturally made that connection to satisfaction and accountability. So thank you for doing so. I think part of that satisfaction. Now, we're getting to happiness and peace because it's all part of that family, right?
Yeah.
It's and I would say, yeah, absolutely. Like if you're going through something and you certainly feel that level of satisfaction, then that will tend to bring you that happiness and peace that we've talked about earlier. Um, but you still gotta find satisfaction. Part of satisfaction is doing what you want for yourself, right?
It starts with identifying truth in your life. And I think a lot of people have given up. I think I said this earlier, but the reality is that a lot of people try and optimize a crappy life instead of stepping back and finding out what they want and pursuing a great life. And you have the right to have a great life. God has empowered you and given the opportunity. Look, if you're watching this podcast right now, you're
Mhm.
richer than most of the world, hands down. You have a way of watching something on a digital item that people around the world, a lot of them will spend the day trying to find food or water or avoid a bomb dropping on their house or avoid someone stealing their family members and selling them in the sex trade. We have it
Mm,
made if we're watching this video right now. So, as crappy as you might feel your life is, you got a lot going for you. So, let's step back and let's be honest with ourselves
yeah.
and let's dream again. Let's really remember what we want our lives to be like. And you have the right to pursue that, and you can do it. It's not that, hey, if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Yeah, yeah. Is there I was gonna say an accountability tracker of some sort that can help us make sure that we're being accountable? Is there something of that we can use, or maybe if you have a strategy in your book of some sort, that like really it's how do you know you're on track? I guess is really what I'm
I
asking.
can tell you when you're off track. So I
Okay,
guess the opposite is on track. Is that fair?
yeah, we can do that.
If you come back and you make an excuse, blame, say I can't, or wait and hope on anything you face, then you're off track. So it's easy to come up with some commitment to say, I'm going to lose weight.
Okay.
And And if I'm accountable to my health, so I can be an old grandpa and play with my grandkids instead of in a wheelchair, and I can't go to the games, I can't get there because I can't get the ramp. If I have a vision for my life and I'm going to make a commitment to do something with my health, then I can know if I'm accountable because I'm if I'm sitting down and eating pizza and beer, then I've chosen to not be accountable at that moment, and I'll come up with an excuse. Well, it's Saturday. I mean, it's his birthday. Come on, what do you? I can't miss it at his birthday. And if we're making excuses, or if we're saying it was a really bad day, so I'm going to go home and have a bunch of beer. If we're blaming the day, if we're just saying, well, I just can't do it, dieting's too hard, you'll know when you're using these lies because now you're
Sure.
aware of them. And so you can remain accountable by looking at everything you're doing and remembering if you're pulling out one of those victimization type excuses and you'll get sick. I know now when I do it now, I go, oh, stop that. Don't do that. That I feel it
Yeah.
now. I've done it for so long that I can
Yeah.
feel when I'm starting to go off of the accountability track.
There's no glory in being the victim, and I just don't know why people embrace it the manner they do. And it's not for some, but for many, it's their default, right? Well, I couldn't do
It
it
is.
because, right?
Yeah. But I
And
don't think they
that's
see themselves
unfortunate.
as a victim, though. I mean, if you talk to people, you know those people, every time you get with them, they're complaining about something. My boss is a jerk. My kids are horrible. The government, all this stuff. They just complain, complain, complain. They don't think they're a victim. They would say it's unfair. I got screwed. But they don't say I'm a victim. Yes, because
That's
that
victim
sounds weak.
language, isn't it?
They don't see it. They don't see it.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, ask them the next time someone's complaining and saying all this stuff, go, hey, would you categorize yourself as a victim? I mean, I'm just wondering. I'm just asking. And they
Just
go, hell
curious.
no, I'm not a victim.
I'm just curious because they sound like one.
Here's another piece of pizza.
It's funny.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that's a simple enough way to do it is just to remind people
sure.
because they don't know it.
Yep.
I don't want, and remember, you don't say nobody cares to other people, by the way. This is a saying you say to you. This is for
Mm,
you to help yourself get a reminder. Wait, 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 wait. When I'm about to blame, make excuse, say I can't, or wait and hope, nobody cares until I do. So what am I going to do about it? And it might be just as simple as saying today I'm going to start a plan or I'm going to talk to somebody. But the beginning of the journey is what it takes to keep you going. And you can
yep.
practice this very easily.
Yep, yep. And you mentioned earlier having a vision for your life, right? Like how important that is because it now gives you something that you're working towards. And I'll use, weight loss as an example. I want to drop 50 pounds. Okay, well, that's a tangible number, and
Right?
it's really easy to look at the scale and tell you how far you are from that. And if you start, this weight loss journey, and 2 weeks into it, you've gained more weight, there's a problem, right? And that number can tell you.
Right.
But on the other, you flip that to the other side of the coin there. If you're 20 pounds down, right? Okay, you're on the pathway to doing something. But what I sort of love about being able to see that number go down, it can motivate you. And
Yeah.
then you're not even thinking about being accountable because you've got that motivation for that. And that's why I'm such a big fan of celebrating everything you possibly can, because
Yeah.
these things will motivate you to continue to push forward and want better for yourself.
There's a crazy ripple effect of accountability. When we took accountability for our debt
Yep.
and we started making the plans and got our house on the market, we invited a financial advisor to come to our house and look at our checking account and our bills. And we had to be 100% vulnerable with this person. And we
Mm-hmm.
paid him 250 bucks on top of it. So here I am trying to get out of debt and I'm paying this guy 250 bucks to tell me how I stupidly spend my money. But he's like looking at our stuff going, wow, is that how you want to spend your money? And we're like, well, no. Well, how can we do it? I don't know. Are you okay with that answer? No. It was like really awkward, but we needed someone to be in our face and ask us those questions. And we learned we didn't have a written budget. So how do you
Mm.
know how you measure anything? We had no plans. We didn't even talk about money because it was always so bad. Why would we talk about it? But when we finally got the money under control and we conquered it, we then started looking at everything else with this confidence and this swagger. And so if you're going to lose weight and you lose 20 pounds, everyone's going, oh, you look like you lost some weight. You look good. And you buy a new shirt and you can wear it because your gut doesn't hang out. You can tuck it in, all these new adventures we get to have. And then because of that, you feel handsome and you feel smart and you go into a meeting with a little more swagger. Therefore, your business grows because you present yourself with confidence and you make smart decisions, not out of fear or feeling like a loser. You
Yep.
go with
Yep.
confidence. And so the ripple effect of all these things is just carries out through all your whole, I saw it in my own life.
Sure.
It rippled out to every part of my life and it still continues to do that.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I also love the fact that you call yourself the accountability guy. You know, you walk around and say you're the accountability guy. You know, you've got to be accountable all times because people, I'm sure people hold you and go, hey, wait a second, you're supposed to be accountable, right?
They do, and I'm happy for that. And thankfully, it's not as often as it used to be or would have been in the past.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a big target on my back. And if I'm ever in a meeting with my clients, I'm going, well, sorry guys, I was late. Traffic's really bad. They're like, ah, that's an excuse. We don't care about your excuses. You know, they're merciless with me. And that's good because I need to always be sharp in myself, how quick I am to blame or make an excuse.
Yeah.
It's a lifelong practice.
Yeah, no, it totally is. I remember we were trying to schedule, and my schedule was going nuts. And I was like, I gotta be accountable and own it, man. My bad, like and
Yeah,
so it is totally. And I think, when we can do for ourselves and be, consistent and effective with it too, um, holding others, we can help others. Not again, we can't do it for them, but we can help others hold themselves accountable.
that's right. And that's why you get in a group. That's why you surround yourself with people who will help you. It could be your church group, it could be your
Yeah,
neighbors, it could be people you've grown up with. As long as they will play along with your game in a positive way. One of the things I realized is that some people didn't buy into my journey and they would say, like, hey, settle down. You don't have to sell your house. That's a little extreme there, boy. But I was like, look, it's how I want to conquer it. I feel like I've postponed this for 6 years.
right,
I'm going to own it today. And they didn't encourage me. And it was very hard because I respected those people. They were
right,
people I looked up to. And you know, the world doesn't want to have their own junk exposed. So if you start being all accountable and looking at stuff responsibly, they look bad. And so there, don't be surprised when people tell you, you know, settle down. It's not that big of a deal. Everyone has debt. Everyone has marriage problems. Everyone has weight issues. Okay, but I'm not going to let it be something that if I'm satisfied with being fat and unhappy with my marriage and broke, then stay where you are. But the reality is
sure.
you're not happy. That's why
Uh-huh.
you take the assessment. And if you're really being honest and you're really looking at going, man, I don't like that, then do something about it.
Yeah, yeah. Let our listeners know where they go to take that assessment, Robert.
You can go to nobodycaresbook.com and it's under the
Hmm.
resource tab. It's free. Just fill in your information. You don't have to give me your name to get access to it. And then print it out as a PDF and start talking about it with other people. Have them take it and compare it. Their two doesn't matter what your two is. They're not the same. I could have $10,000 in the bank and think I'm broke. You could have $10,000 in the bank. You think you got it made. So it really is the number doesn't tell a story into anyone other
Yeah,
than you. So don't be ashamed of your satisfaction assessment. And then when you have that, share what your journey is. Find one area that you want to work on and let someone walk the journey with you. If you're married and your spouse
mm,
wants to play along with you, if they're part of the problem, then get a buddy who will walk the journey with you to help you get strong. But you got to talk about it. You got to invite people into the journey to be really having that kind of change in your
yeah.
life.
Yeah, and that piece involving others, I think that's an integral aspect to this, right? Like being able to
Yeah.
bring others on your journey that can help you and remind you, and especially about that close friend. I got a buddy of mine. We do the gym thing, and it's funny. Like he'll call and go, hey, we're supposed to be there today. I'm like, yeah. But I'll tell you what. I can't wait to be the one to call him and go, hey, how about you? Right. So we play this game back and forth. And every time he calls, I'm like, okay, I'll make a note of that when you're not ready to go, right? And so
Yeah.
I think that's
That's
great
motivating.
to have that.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah. It's motivating because
yes?
we thrive with that. What did we do when we were kids when some knucklehead in your elementary school said, I dare you to jump off that monkey bar? And you jumped off and you broke your ankle. You know, but your friends have always, the peer pressure has always been around. This is nothing new. But what happened as we got older is we stopped hanging out with our friends and letting them
Yeah.
challenge us. We just started isolating ourselves and we didn't talk about our problems because we thought, I
Yep.
got to look like I have it all together. But if you are going to go back to the idea of letting people know your story, peer pressure goes a long way.
Yeah. It does. It does. Robert, this has been a phenomenal chat, man. I'm so appreciative that we have the time to do this, and the focus on accountability is super important. If you're not taking control of your life or have an idea where it's going, or taking responsibility for being accountable, responsible, we know what that is, but being accountable for the things that happen to you, then you're not going to get to this point of this best audacious life. So it's so key that we remove these barriers and these blockers, and we forge forward ahead to where we're supposed to be. Again, this has been awesome. Thank you for the time, man. This is great.
Oh, my pleasure. Hey, I have a special website for people who are watching your show. If
Okay.
they go to nobodycarespod.com, nobody
Okay.
cares pod, like podcast,
Yeah.
and they put in the contact form there, they put in audacious in the code word, I will mail a copy of my book for free to the
Oh,
first
wow.
two people who fill out that form. And I'll copy you on that so you can know who some of
Oh,
your
wow.
listeners are. And I want to engage with them. If they're really going to read the book, if they really want to change their life, I will give you a copy for free because I'm that serious about what I'm doing. And I want to walk with them in their journey. I want to hear how it's going.
I
And
love it.
they can tell you too, and they can share with you as they're going through this and chasing their own version of an audacious life.
I love it. Well, thank you for that, and yeah, we'll make sure that the all those details are in the show notes below. And again, this has been great, Robert. Thanks so much for being here on the Audacious Living podcast.
Thank you so much.
Back we are here on the podcast. In our conversation with Robert, we explore the transformative power of accountability and unlocking our true potential and living a life aligned with our aspirations. By acknowledging our responsibility for our choices as well as our actions, we can break free from the limitations of victimhood and create a life of purpose and fulfillment. Now, for those who are inspired by Robert's story and are seeking to embark on their own journey of accountability, make sure to check out the show notes for his contact details and connect with him directly, as well as explore his resources that he has available for personal growth. In fact, Robert is offering a special discount on his book, Nobody Cares, for listeners of the Audacious Living podcast. Make sure to grab your copy and again, dive deeper into the transformative power of accountability. As we wrap up today's episode, I encourage you to like, follow, subscribe, share if you haven't already done so. Of course, that is how we continue to spread the message of living audaciously with the entire world. And so your help is very much appreciated. Stay tuned for more inspiring conversations. And remember, accountability is the key to unlocking our audacious potential. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stephenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.